Joining me now to discuss what's at stake in Greece today is Yannis Ioannides. He is the Max and Herta Neubauer Professor of Economics at Tufts University, and he has written and lectured extensively on the crisis in Greece. And he joins us now from Boston. Professor, welcome to Bottom Line. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Professor, as you just heard, I read that we got a quote from Andrew Balls of PIMCO, and he said, quote, that Greece is essentially bankrupt. Would you agree with that assessment?
Actually, I don't. I don't because I think we are, yes, at a very historic moment where the challenges for Greece are simply enormous. But it is a challenge of modernization. Greece's partners are putting up real money, tremendous resources to help Greece get through this difficulty. It's up to Greece to take the challenge and move forward. And the issue is not the debt as much, I believe. The issue really is transforming the country, transforming the economy.
Right.
Structural reforms, and that is the debate ought to be about.
Well, those structural reforms, I would gather, would also hopefully bring about what Greek officials would see as improvements in productivity. Is that something that's absolutely necessary in order for Greece to solve its problems long term as opposed to into the short term right now?
It's exactly about structural reforms, exactly about improvements in productivity. That is the real challenge, and that is what Greeks ought to accept and stop blaming the rest of the world. We have to get out and explain to people that it's up to us to improve, and there are tremendous resources at Greece's disposal right now to implement improvements in productivity, starting from the labor market, for example.
Well, Professor Ioannides, that's interesting because then I've been told that you believe that the public sector in Greece needs to shrink. By how much?
Oh, at least by 20 to 25%. And not only shrink, but also improve throughout by means of new technology, by means of especially using the right people in the right places, allocating personnel with skills. There are lots of skilled people in Greece that are just not used the right way.
One of the things that we haven't heard a lot of discussion about concerning the Greek situation is taxation. How is the tax structure settled now in Greece, and is this something that can be dealt with now, or does it have to be, as we say here in America, does the can have to be kicked down the road? Unfortunately, the tax structure has to be improved immediately. The reason for that is primarily because all the normal operation of the tax system is extremely unfair, and the greatest austerity measures fell primarily on the people who are poorer, who depend on salaries, who cannot hide their income, and all that. To give you an example, if Greeks paid the taxes according to the average of the EU, there would not have been any problem right now. And to give you another example, 1/3 of the Greek labor force are self-employed people, but only 5 to 6% of the taxpayers are self-employed people. Something needs to be done immediately to shore up the support for the government. And so far, the last year, the government really failed to understand how important it was not only to project, but also implement fair taxation. But Professor Ioannides, this is not just so much about the tax structure as well, because paying taxes is one thing, but the austerity measures that have to be in place, where are these cuts going to have to be made, and is there unfortunately going to have to be suffering across the board?
To start with, the idea of privatization, for example, that some public enterprises simply ought to be taken down. They ought to be auctioned off. Oh, the railroads, they do nothing. They are just a drag on the public purse. They've been borrowing for years with government guarantees to pay exorbitant salaries to a small number of people. That's scandalous. And the money can be saved by really stopping this incredible bleeding of the treasury from inefficient, bloated, absolutely useless enterprises.
Right. Professor, Prime Minister Papandreou, in your opinion, how has he handled this crisis?
I think that Prime Minister Papandreou has always said the right things. I also think that he knows, he's aware of the issues, but as you know, the devil is in the detail.
And Professor, if I might add too, there's also a difference between saying the right things and doing the right things, correct?
Exactly. They have to be implemented thoroughly. I watched most of the speeches. I watched the speech of the Prime Minister on Sunday, opening up the debate for the vote of confidence, and he said exactly the same things. And he said exactly what was needed about a referendum in order to bring to the public, to make the public responsible, to make the voters responsible for where the country is at right now. Yeah. And he said exactly the right things. But implementation, as you said, is the key.
Professor, the other nations in the Eurozone, Greece's neighbors, how do you think that they have handled that? And there's always that talk about the threat of contagion. If I might ask secondarily, what would happen if tonight's vote does not go in Prime Minister Papandreou's favor?
Well, my personal assessment is that the Prime Minister will win the vote of confidence. But if he doesn't, if PASOK loses power, there will be elections, and the chances are that New Democracy may be ahead of PASOK. And the way that the electoral system in Greece works, even a tiny difference can favor the first party. And the largest party in parliament, even though the difference in the vote may be very small, the first one is favored, and the result would be probably a majority, probably New Democracy ahead of PASOK. But that's a problem, because what is needed is not a new election. What is needed is for all political forces to come together and really deal with the country's problems.
Yannis Ioannides, he's the Max and Herta Neubauer Professor of Economics at Tufts University, joining us live from Boston. Professor, we appreciate your time and your perspective. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.